Few celebrity trials in history have shaken the world like this one, and even today, it still refuses to fade away. In 2005, Michael Jackson stood in a courtroom facing accusations that would change everything. The case centered around claims involving 13-year-old Gavin Arvizo and incidents allegedly connected to Jackson's Neverland ranch. What made it even more intense was the global spotlight. Millions watched closely. Yet no cameras were allowed inside the courtroom, turning every detail into speculation, rumor, and media fire. But now, in Netflix's 2026 docuseries The Verdict, new behind-the-scenes details are resurfacing, and some of them are raising eyebrows all over again. One of the most unexpected revelations wasn't even about the accusations themselves, but the courtroom atmosphere. Before key testimony, jurors were shown Martin Bashir's documentary Living with Michael Jackson. As Michael's biggest hits played, something unusual reportedly happened. Jurors and even people in the courtroom were seen reacting to the music, some nodding, some swaying. One observer even described it as if the courtroom had briefly forgotten where it was. And that moment raises a bigger question: could emotion and celebrity influence have subtly shaped what happened next? But that wasn't the only controversial angle brought up in the docuseries. A major focus of the defense was the credibility of Gavin Arvizo's family. Jackson's legal team pointed to past legal disputes involving the family, including a settlement tied to a JCPenney incident. Allegations later surfaced that Gavin's mother, Janet, had given inconsistent statements in earlier civil cases. During the trial, those details became a turning point for some observers. One juror later admitted that the revelations deeply affected how she viewed the testimony, suggesting it all felt too questionable to ignore. And what happened next only added more tension to the case. The defense also highlighted claims of welfare fraud involving Janet Arvizo, which later resulted in legal consequences after the trial. While unrelated to Jackson's guilt or innocence, it became part of the broader narrative that the jury had to process in real time. Then came one of the more unusual elements discussed in the verdict: the so-called nicknames. Testimony and claims suggested Jackson used playful names for Gavin and his brother, including terms like Applehead and Doo-Doo. Some witnesses described Polaroid photos and handwritten notes exchanged during visits to Neverland. Supporters saw it as innocent bonding, while critics argued it painted a far more troubling picture depending on interpretation. But the most debated moment came during discussions about the Neverland investigation itself. There were claims made about items found during the search of the estate, including magazines and materials that prosecutors examined closely. However, it's important to note that Jackson was never charged with possession of child pornography, and officials later clarified that nothing legally classified as explicit child material was confirmed. Still, in a case this high-profile, even ambiguity became fuel for global debate. When the verdict finally came down, acquittal on all charges, it should have been the end of the story. But it wasn't, because public opinion didn't split neatly, it fractured. Some believed justice had been served, others believed something had been missed entirely. And decades later, that divide hasn't really healed. And now, with Netflix revisiting the trial and the verdict, the same questions are coming back into focus, not with answers but with even more uncertainty. Was it a case shaped by evidence alone or by fame, pressure, and perception? That question is still hanging in the air, and maybe that's exactly why this story refuses to disappear.